Let's go. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and hello, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Robbi Astral, and welcome to Robbi Tech. Today we've got another episode in the series unboxing the real tech news and reviews, Series 1, Episode 2. And today we have the privilege of unboxing Greg Salazar, I believe. Salazar, I beg your pardon, I hope that's kosher. And WTF is with GPU prices. So essentially, he's just released a video regarding graphic processor prices and the price hikes. Everyone knows about this. Everyone knows why and who's to blame. Continuing our series, is there any integrity left in the IT industry? And Greg Salazar. Now, Greg is a massive ego in the IT sector on YouTube regarding YouTube-related PC tech content. And with that ego comes a responsibility. I'd like to not necessarily put him in place, because on a side note, I do thoroughly enjoy a lot of Greg's video content that he provides. But as a video content provider for YouTube regarding a sector that's becoming hyperinflated and pretty much not available to the average layman when it comes to setting up a gaming PC or whatnot, that's why consoles may be the option for a lot of people for the time being. It's unfortunate that he paints a picture of himself in one light but doesn't completely execute in the other. What am I referring to? Well, the topic of today is Greg's video, which is WTF just happened to GPU prices. We are going to dissect this video and hopefully have a better rounded understanding of what exactly Greg is not reiterating in his video completely, the stuff that he's missing out as the expert that he should be saying, and also just a quick sum up to establish our position and our take on what is actually going on, rather than the professional Greg showcasing his prowess through the language that he chooses to dissect the stuff that he refers to, rather than being more accurate in his approach and taking a bit more due diligence and care to you guys, his viewers, who are pretty much taking him for word. So without a moment's ado, let's get into the video, people. Let's see what the hell I'm crapping on about. Just the complete scope of the picture may not be completely obvious to everyone, okay? So especially if you're just listening to the word, and the word, be it the miners, be it the scalpers, they're the go-tos. And Greg's, what he calls at the end, I believe, because I half-assed listened to this, was a rant, but it got me hot under the collar at about the 8-minute, 45-minute mark. I wanted to bow out, but from there on in, you will hear the live footage of myself discussing and pausing the video at the same time. Up until we get to that point, it's going to be myself rehashing and trying to bring that same emotion into play without being too finicky and or maybe dropping that F-bomb a few times, like, because WTF, Greg, you know better, mate. You know better. And let's get into it so we can find out why.
You know, maybe you haven't noticed what's been going on the past few months because you just started interested in upgrading your PC right now. You have a system that you think is fine, whatever.
Upgrading PC right now. Definitely did not notice that. Thank you, Greg. Anyone in the industry whatsoever, anyone playing video games on the PC, your audience definitely are not enthusiasts, I'm guessing, but just the run-of-the-mill young children who have been playing Fortnite progressively and just now decided, because of the update in Fortnite and the RTX and whatnot, that a few months after that they're going to decide to upgrade their cards. So it's taken that long before that's gotten around to the stage, and everyone's oblivious except those type of people. Why not just start with, you've just decided to get into the PC game and building a computer and all, Otherwise, I don't know. I hope this goes somewhere. I don't want to nitpick. I don't want to seem like I'm being nitty picky. So yeah, along with what just happened, everything's been going on for a good month or two or three or four or before COVID began. So, or just before COVID began, or just after COVID began. So let's go, Greg. Let's get into this shit because I got 16 minutes myself to hear you put aside and an extra 15 to our comment, and I don't want to be overstepping the lines between what is right and wrong by trying to press something out of nothing, frankly. So give me some ammunition, please, mate.
There's dust floating everywhere, and you're
On a side note, Greg is a great bloke, and speaking of dust, check out his videos on how to clean a PC correctly. Greg is an amazing PC cleaner, frankly, guys. He gets right on into it. He shows you the correct procedures and methods. Get a hose it out. You know, get those gloves on, the black burglar cat gloves, and enough product that's worth more than the actual PC he's cleaning out. It's amazing. It's great for his viewers because everyone wanted to watch it. Everyone came out of the woodworks, and you have to give him 2 thumbs up because he definitely shows you how it's done. Maybe that's why he's got the dust in the air, I'm guessing. But on a side note, to be really honest, he does produce a lot of great content, although be it at times it seems like, and pardon if I seem slightly excited, I'm trying to rev myself up because I am getting hot under the collar. He seems like he's got an ego, frankly, and it seems to show when, I don't know, when you're getting sued, bro. Try not to make a couple of videos out of it that make you money and that you take to the bank, and don't actually say it as that in that fashion, because you just never know if something was to arise that could have been brought back to bite you in the ass. And since you're in the public eye, you've got a duty of care. Since you're in the public eye and you're critiquing certain analysis videos such as this one, need to have the duty and responsibility to provide that accurate information, diligently put, concise information, rounded information, not subjected to any form of shadowing and or a lack of transparency. You have to be completely there, mate, and you have to at the very least make it depicted as such. So let's see where this is going. I can see eBay is already up, so eBay is one of those places that's a bit regarding pricing anyway. I never go there to even price my products or get, it's only the greedy scum that actually will generally go to eBay, at least in Australia per se. It's not a good place. You want to go to Marketplace, you want to go to Craigslist, you want to go to places like Gumtree in Australia, as some tech tubers say, because that's where the sort of buy now listings are actually really listed. That's where people want to really sell. That's where they're in your local area and you can go meet up and see the card. You don't have to get it sent out to you. And that's where, generally speaking, there isn't a 10% cut going to eBay as well, which will rise the price. So let's go, Greggy. Get us into this video, please, because I'm getting into myself, and just like you, we both can rant a bit, So I wish this was it. I wish I was interacting with him when we were discussing this so that we could butt heads, but unfortunately it's not the case. He's in a different league to my own, so hopefully when he hears this, video is currently of his is linked in the description below as well, so follow along. If I've just got the audio up, I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to play this, but if he does see this and he decides to get a band in some way, shape or form, because I am essentially reviewing his video in full to make sure and to reiterate and to potentially, unfortunately for him, expand on certain exclusions that he doesn't actually portray adequately and accurately enough regarding to what the hell just happened to GPU prices, people. So let's go. Let's go.
That honestly couldn't be better timing. Right now the graphics card market is so freaking screwed up that it's deterring a lot of people from wanting to build right now. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why this is the case. Now, obviously, we've had the issue with Ampere scalpers, the bots and scripts being used to buy these up in bulk flip them on eBay for double MSRP, right? That's been happening since the 3070, 3080, 3090, 3060 Ti.
Yes, that has been happening. Bots and scalpers. Why is that the case? Supply and demand. Obvious stuff. Everyone knows this. Very publicized. Why? Why though? From the Founders Edition launch, essentially within a heartbeat, NVIDIA didn't produce enough product. Their AIBs did not produce enough product. Supply and demand. Very simple. Have they cranked it up? They have not cranked it up, frankly. Unfortunately, the demand is too excessive because of the supply issue. Is something getting done about it? Well, they can only do so much because there's only a certain amount of space in the supply chain itself to produce these cards at the rate that they're being sold at. So eventually it comes to a stage where you're already starting off with NVIDIA itself being one of the culprits, and they may look like a hero regarding the retail value of that they set essentially, but they were very aware of what was going to occur in some ways. That's why they set it, the bar perhaps quite low in comparison to where it would go, because AIB releases generally do increase the price. The difference was we never realized how decent, for example, in the 3080 Founders Edition's case, would be the quality. It was off the reference model. It wasn't the reference model itself, and the AIBs generally use a reference model as a basis to their own cards. NVIDIA took it off the reference and customized it completely, and it outperforms and outshines any AIB card to this day, unless it's technically overclocked to an nth degree. And the overclockability and the cooling capacity and just the elegance of the NVIDIA product was amazing. Unfortunately, NVIDIA did not only produce a good card, but they also produced a demand where they were aware, NVIDIA was aware of the performance gains that they were going to suggest at the beginning and advertise to be the case. They were aware of that in comparison to all their previous cards and previous generations to date. They knew, logically speaking, that there was going to be a sufficiently high demand for these cards currently. It's not, when this sort of increase in performance occurs, it's not from a generation to generation, it's essentially leaps and bounds. And it's at a time where they were aware that the 1080 Ti perhaps was just a little too strong for their liking, because it's held off some people's upgrades to their GPUs and buying additional products from NVIDIA for a longer period of time than what perhaps NVIDIA as a company would prefer to have, okay? And because of this, guess what? NVIDIA, and the rumor mill is approximately 20,000 of those Founders Edition cards upon release were released to the world. I believe Australia got about 1,000. They went through M-Wave, they were raffled off, it was ridiculous. AIB cards were released the next day. I'm very sour about this because I was ready to at least have the chance to purchase these cards. Unfortunately, they were raffled off the next day after the AIBs already went on sale, and we didn't even get notification that the raffle had occurred and that you were unsuccessful. Instead, we got spam in our inboxes from the specific outlet that's like Newegg or like Amazon, and regarding other sale items and whatnot, and it was disgusting, and I'm extremely frustrated because of that. Because then what ended up happening, and I'm giving you a rounder picture before we get into it of the players that at hand, then what ended up happening was we did have as well, going back, COVID come into the mix, and we had also, as soon as that happened, retailers, very savvy retailers, resellers, increase the prices of all items regarding PC, borderline almost overnight. I saw this because I'm an avid buyer of PC parts as well, and I was in the process of actually buying PC parts at exactly that time. They got taken off the shelf, okay? The next day they were in stock again, and they were goddamn about 30 to 40% up in increase regarding certain monitors and whatnot, where I was, for example, buying a set of 3 monitors, and I was up to my second because I had to do it in sections. I couldn't splurge for that widescreen monitor I wanted, so I wanted to create the effect. And the second monitor went up in price. The third monitor, I had to bite the bullet. Otherwise, I would have never had identical 3-panel monitor display. Unfortunately, since then, I'm in the market for a new GPU because one of my display ports went and I can't have that set up anymore. So we've already named a couple of named and essentially potentially shamed. We will paint a larger picture where it is relevant regarding these players, okay? Understand that Jay from J2 Sense even mentioned the retailers and we're to blame. It's very, very subjective topic for these video content creators because the retailers themselves are massive sponsors of many of them. Also, the AIBs themselves are massive sponsors of many of them. And then NVIDIA itself is a massive point of call regarding once they're up at a certain caliber, they receive and or get gifts, products, items for review sampling and that before anyone else has a chance to. And if they're responsible enough in the eyes of NVIDIA, and we know what happens when you're not responsible enough, you get the benefits and you reap the joys of being part of a club. Okay, so let's continue on with Greg Salazar, and hopefully he's all kosher and above board so that I'm not getting too hot under the collar. I'm getting too hot to be playing these games. I don't have time to be listening to any sort of bullshit when I'm doing my research online. I like, if they're so-called experts, I like the experts to be really well-rounded as well, at the very least. You can trust that face. Okay, wait, sorry, not this face. I mean, him. Let's hope so, people.
But there's more to the story. We also have tariffs, which a lot of the waivers...
Okay, so just to reiterate, tariffs, from my understanding, they were 10 to 15%. I may be wrong. They're actually about 20 to 25%, depending on the electronics products in regards to the USA. So even if it's a 20% rise, that is quite excessive, but there were also other reasons for this. Around that time, manufacturing itself, Asus came out with a statement that they were going to raise prices on the manufacturing level. This was already after prices had risen because of supply and demand issues, because of scalping, because the retailers in Australia at the very least had already raised prices, okay? And manufacturing hadn't filtered through, let alone anyone else, let alone NVIDIA saying, well, we've got a profit margin that we need to make because of our reference allowance, essentially, and let alone it coming from the source or the supply chain itself. So we're about to get into that aspect of things, and Greg's doing really well. He's hitting some major points right at the beginning. That's what two essentially from him though. So let's continue on and see if he manages to hit all those markers to explain what the hell happened to GPU prices recently, eh guys?
That were awarded to Chinese exporters have expired now. They expired January 1st or thereabouts 2021. That was literally 2 months ago as of time of filming. And that means that we are being forced to pay more now. So
2 months ago, time of filming, you had the luxury at one stage of still getting an item that was already on a boat because they were on boats when this happened. Unfortunately, the Trump administration decided lack any sort of... They just let it slip. And you know, trade relations with China and Trump relations with China, I guess he wasn't going to be fixing the mess that was about to arise secretly, and it can be a debate whether, on a side note, whether Trump has something to do with, say, chip shortages on the whole. You have to understand that, for example, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, I believe, are all American companies from my understanding. So it's something to look at where if an agreement was perhaps more forthcoming, then we wouldn't have these price rises that are occurring on a lot of PC items, not just GPUs, people, and especially in America at the moment as well. Australia seems to have already had our price hikes. If we have more subsequently because of this, because NVIDIA is somehow trying, NVIDIA America is somehow trying to, it won't make sense for Australians to get that additional cost given, because you don't send items from China or there in that region to America, to Australia. It would come on the boat straight to us. So crossing our fingers, we don't. Unfortunately, the retailers are savvy, so whatever chance they get to increase prices, they shall. And that's why I say they noticed, and they did They increased them in our regions first, and then they're now double dipping. They are the actual major culprits, okay? They are the major culprits in our neck of the woods. I hope it's not the case in yours, but I hope at the very least they are also at least touched on by Greg Salazar. He started off a channel to do with science like, I can't remember exactly what it was. Then he changed it to his name, frankly, so I don't know.
For those imports.
Facetious, maybe? Maybe not. Maybe it's for tax purposes. Maybe it was easier to, say the business is himself, or not. I don't know how it works in America. I know in Australia you can be a sole trader essentially and have an ABN number under your name, but that means anything that's depicted has to be your business is your name. So maybe that's how it works there, and he declares everything and all his income, or maybe that's the complete opposite as a result of that.
Tariffs affect the people who are buying the goods from other countries, and that is affecting gravity prices. There's also the effect of mining, which...
So 2 points plus on the whole generalistic approach and mining, so that's 3 points, guys. Let's go.
I feel like it's gone under the radar.
I'm not going to touch on mining too much. We're aware of that. We're aware of scalpers and that, so there's not much to it. And the tariffs, on the other hand, you may or may not have been aware of. It's been around for a couple of months now, so anyone who has some sort of inclining into and or is thinking about buying GPUs and that is aware of a 25% potential price hike to occur to American parts. I believe your Canadian brothers will actually potentially have a slight decrease even because of their relations with China as opposed to the Americans. So that's just a side note and an option to some people perhaps in Detroit and near the border who may consider perhaps buying from across and just driving and grabbing it instead. Something that I definitely would. I know a lot of people, sorry to say this, a lot of people regarding doctors and that just end up going there because it's a lot more convenient. You don't have to die in America in that sector because of the health industry. But that's nothing to do with Trump. That's to do with Obama, I'm guessing, and his lack of leadership to be able to set something up for the Americans, because had he done something concrete, Trump would not steamrolled in and just smashed it all down again. True. I don't know much about politics though. I'm just a better judge of character, and big ego tripping has to be fortified with the right type of approach to justify it. Okay, you can have an ego. Okay, that's fine. You can be perceived to have an ego, just as long as you can talk the talk, then walk the walk, please. Okay, and let that shine for you. Okay, and none of this fake news, and that involves Greg as well. Okay. So let's go, expert. Please explain. We're all listening.
Radar quite a bit. I know Pedro over at PCMR is talking about how not many people were talking about mining a month ago, even though Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency prices were skyrocketing. That is a serious issue. All that's compounding into the perfect storm for graphics card prices. It is bad.
All those combining, although he did say some, so he's omitting already some, if you take him for his word, okay? So at the beginning, so let's continue on.
For the general consumer, it is getting so bad to the point where, again, people are just giving up. They're giving up, they're losing hope of that, or they're spending 3 times MSRP.
That's right. General consensus is just don't even think about it, guys. If you got something, that's better than nothing. Or if you're in a position and it doesn't matter the money, then obviously you are inclined to buy. But again, don't mess with that supply by doing so, because it's just going to increase the price again. So the general advice has been, don't partake with the scalpers. Don't give them any light of day. Continue on, soldiering on. The shit will get better. Unfortunately, the coins have increased in value, so the miners have come into play. The miners themselves are just, you can't hold it against them, okay? You cannot hold it against them, okay? Unfortunately, they're going to do what they do. It's once they go to resell the item, again, unfortunately, they're going to try to recoup the prices of those cards. And if there isn't a supply increase whatsoever, continuing forward where we get a saturated market of cards, okay, then unfortunately that price, even secondhand, will 2, 3, 4 years later, they will still hold value. And what happens is, again, coming back to one of the major culprits as well, the retailers on the other hand, once they get wind that they can have their prices higher, how often when prices go higher do they actually come down again, people? When in history have you seen a retailer go, that's fine, let's maintain that price or keep it down so that you guys don't have to pay more, and we'll just accept the fact that we get less as a result of this? Okay, so let's continue on, please.
RP, I'm not exaggerating with that number. 3 times.
And guess what? On a side note, I love the retailers, by the way. I'll tell you why. That's where I get all my PC parts from.
MSRP to get a brand new car. It's insane. We're going to talk about some of those trends we see right now. Stay with me.
Okay, so we're going to skip ahead.
For cell phones, you can find them in your...
Okay, so this is specifically for the video card category, and from my understanding, it is the average video card price in US dollars over the last 18 months. You got a variance of cards and why. So I don't know how accurate the 2080 Super is for example, February, where there is a price hike where it just comes from nowhere and it's completely non-existent. That should probably be non-existent, full stop. And that may be the case with some of them. So when Greg looks at those figures on the charts here, so you can see my cursor more than likely if we have a look. Press play here.
Friends, I'll link this down below if you want to check it out yourself, but this specifically is for the video card category. We're going to skip over Turing because these...
Okay, so going to skip over something which is perhaps relevant, but not necessarily too much so. We do have to go to the 3000 series. The relevancy comes into place and it backdates itself to essentially any 4 to 8 gigabyte card realistically. It's the 8 gigabyte cards that are still viable for mining, and understand this why. Okay, this is something that's neglected to be mentioned. Even the old school cards are more viable, especially the refined old school cards where they are much more energy efficient too. So to an avid mine farmer, not a mine farm, then they will understand that the difference is there is the amount of power they will save. Okay, so when you have a card that doesn't require a PCIe connection as well, and they can get all the power from the board which they're already connected to, that is a very efficient card regardless of how long it takes to mine a set coin. Okay, because they will not be spending jack all on electricity bills themselves, okay, for those cards. Okay, it may take 3 or 4 times as long, but if the cost per se regarding the running costs to how long it takes is an equilibrium and a balance which still justifies a profit, it still works for them. On the other hand, that's a trickle-down approach to those being taken as well as 4 gigabyte cards, because that entry-level sweet spot for budget-orientated gaming and or people who just need a card for gaming nowadays is 4 gigabytes, like a 1050 Ti OC or something. 970 perhaps, very power hungry, that 970, as opposed to the 1050 Ti, for example. And yeah, so if we, for example, I've got a 1050 Ti just here actually. It's an old MSI one. These are coming back into stock, or they will be coming back into production, and you'll get a chance to see these in stock as well. Again, they were recently, up until the point of approximately COVID and just into COVID, they were still in stock in my local store for approximately $220 Australian. So secondhand, these would go for about $150 in good condition or less. Because of COVID and because of supply shortages and because they went out of stock and because 3000 series was never available, then 2000 was slapped up as a result, then it had a trickle-down effect that these have actually gone up in value now. But again, you wouldn't want to spend more than about that figure. And then to confuse the mix, when they start to produce these again, what's going to occur is you're going to have a lot of people making these very, very clean and pointing them off as almost brand new cards as well. Let's continue on, Greg, please. Can you stop giving me the ammunition to interrupt? Thank you. The RTX 3060 Ti. So you have to see that the graph, it gradually increases and then it tapers, but there's a bit of an increase and a spike. So it's not straight away at a set level because of the tariffs, where it should be at a set level because of the tariff implementation. You have to understand this because of stock coming in and whatnot, and it's a basic approach. There's no massive spike, okay? And also it came at a certain set time where I believe it's completely obvious, okay? And there's not much to it. So when Greg announces what he's announcing and his analysis of the graph, I hope he says it as much so rather than just tells you what's going on with the graph. And if he's got nothing else to say on the matter, why is he stagnating on the graph? We can all look at a graph and see a graph chart and understand how to read a graph. But the reasons why it's the case has to be elaborated for him to be well-rounded in his scope in regards to his analysis of the GPU price, because that's essentially what he's doing. It is a rant just like myself for another, and we're only 2 minutes in, so I apologize, but we're gonna listen.
More popular Ampere cards that were launched this year. This is, you see a little bump right there? This bump is an indication of tariffs now being kind of implemented into the prices here. So remember, this affects the consumer, not necessarily the distributor or the exporter. And as a result, we're paying more. So you can see how this trend is exhibited in multiple SKUs, not just the 3060 Ti. This is the more recent launch, so you can see this was pretty abrupt right at the beginning. But even RTX 3070, so this is MSRP here. This is not like third-party scalping prices. So if you look at the left side, this is between $400 and $600. That's fair. That's what NVIDIA said these should be sold for. But this bump right here is a result of...
So the odd thing is, again, that's fair. That's what they should be sold for, between $400 and $600. Unfortunately, the figure is never nearer 4 and is closer to the maximum that is recommended. Let alone that bump is a upward climb and a trajectory over a period of about half a month according to the graph itself, where it's still steadily continued to climb, where you think that tariff implementation would be completely legitimately at a level that is a complete and utter straight line, if that's the only reason for the price hike itself, okay? It would be a clean line from the day all stock had arrived. There would be a stopgap and you'd see that line increasing and it'd be clean, or it'd be if all stock had arrived at the same time, it'd be the steepest line you've ever seen imaginable on one specific day. And that day in general should have been the day of implementation that the tariffs have been renounced, okay? And unfortunately, and it was the case regarding certain companies, they just put the price up regardless because that's what was going to occur, and they were already ready to, I guess, have you pay extra, even though on a technicality that first load of stuff coming through for the first month or two would have been on the boat already and not imposed by those tariff sanctions, or what exactly you call them in that regards, okay?
The tariff waivers now ending. Same goes for the 3080 right here, and same goes for the...
Yes and no. Yes and not really. What's with the jaggedness? Is that just the market itself fluctuating? Is that the price of the coin itself? Like, what are these reasonings? Like over here, like why is it up and then suddenly down again? Is it because it's just down again? Because I'll tell you what retailers will do as well. Some retailers, and I've noticed, will advertise a product at a lower amount to get you to get to their website when it's not in stock, but when it becomes available, they put it up in price, okay? So unfortunately, that's how it works. They've got disclaimers where their price fluctuations may or may occur, and they blame it on the industry itself. But it's at their discretion, okay, people? Understand this. They are the ones in power, especially when these graphs are representing the retailers and the prices that we're paying at the retailers, okay? If it emphasized eBay as well, then Greg would have mentioned that, and he would have not dedicated half the video to eBay itself, which should be completely discounted, frankly.
More or less. Now, another interesting note is that PC Part Picker Price Trends also keeps track of RX 570 prices. Now, this is
So RX 570 is your 4 gig variant, I believe. Your RX 580 is your 8 gig variant. And that's what I mean. Eventually it comes to a stage where it's a steady amount up until a point. I believe that point is borderline COVID, okay? And people, and the catch up, and then realizing, and people looking for budget, looking for getting in, okay? And that spike is pretty much the GPU industry effed up, okay? I understand that's where it gets crazy, because you can't going back. Like I mentioned, they're gone, okay? That's why the strategy of bringing in the 1000 series, the 10 series, I beg your pardon, cards back into the mix is something that will hopefully alleviate the supply issue for people who just need a card that will run, okay? You'll see this on the 580, it's even more aggressive, and that's because, I tell you what, it is the miners there themselves as well, unfortunately, and the miners here where certain miners have just done the math and going, let's just go with the more efficient cards. Simple, okay? It takes us longer, but we're in it for the longer game if they've, crunched their numbers in that regards, okay? This is not in reference to scalping or anything like that. This is purely because of a supply issue in the industry on the whole in general. I don't want him to stagnate too much. It's completely obvious. Don't explain what's going on, please, because we can see the curvature and the massive increase. How long will it take him to say what he needs to say?
Several-year-old card, right? But it's very popular still because it's an entry-level card, good for 1080p gaming. You can get these in 4 and 8 gig variants. The prices here have pretty much been consistent throughout. It starts here at September 2019, ends February 2021. So you can see right up until about the middle of 2020, prices for 570s were relatively stable, between $100 and $200. This is brand new, mind you. And with other cards that are much better being launched during this time, slightly before this, it didn't really make much sense to buy these new. Granted, considering what we're seeing now, I guess it more or less would have made sense back then because they are selling for twice or 3 times what they were selling for 6 months ago. So the price slowly started increasing here, and then right here.
Why? Why at a time where the card should be going dead? Why, Greg?
Here, you see another little bump, okay? It kind of dipped down closer toward Christmas. Then you have the new year.
Why, Greg? Please.
Prices resurge, and then you have this huge...
Thank you, Greg. We've seen the chart now for numerous seconds. Why, Greg? Please.
Spike right here after February. This right here, folks, is what I want to talk about a little.
But what about that steady incline where from approximately $150 we see this first point that you make, from about 150 to about, let's just say, $250, a card that is of age and outshone by 2 or 3 generations in that sense. Why has it risen $100 to begin with, okay, before you explain the goddamn bland obvious to us?
Later in the video, but I've been keeping track of a plethora.
Because he's keeping track, people. He's keeping track of plethora. Unfortunately, I don't think his mind's in the game for this sort of analysis, frankly. I hope to God I'm wrong. In the long run, people, because, and analytically speaking, it will be a downward spiral for him.
of graphics card prices throughout 2020 and 2021. Just trying to see how COVID and other things were affecting these markets.
There, say it. COVID was affecting the market. So that first increase is COVID. So that's number 4 then. Okay, please. But we want to know, because look, regardless of that increase, if you got rid of that increase itself before Christmas, and why did it dip before Christmas? We know because the other cards came out. But if that's the case, you mitigate that increase in itself, and suddenly that peak would be, in theory, approximately about here. So they'd be topping out about 270, these cards, instead of the 370 or thereabouts, which they're topping out at the moment as we currently speak, okay? Because you'd still have the other factors bringing up prices, but there would have been a set amount of supply still available, and or in this field, in this card specifically, where COVID would not cause the price rises to have occurred to begin with, okay? Simples. But
markets, people want graphics cards. They're in high demand. They have been in high demand, but they have never been in more demand, I think, than now, especially with so many people stuck at home with nothing else to do. Now, screw it. I'll build a gaming PC. I'll stream from my house. I need a good graphics card to do that, so I'll go ahead and buy a graphics card. There you go. That kind of demand is what kept graphics cards not only fairly expensive, but also fairly difficult to obtain, especially in later 2020. But this bump right here is one of these that you don't see too often, and I'm hoping that it corrects itself soon. The problem is people are still buying these cards for upwards of $350, $400. It's insane. And then check this out. This is
because the other option is spending upwards of $1,700 to $2,000 for cards, and if you're trying to get into gaming, if you've got a young child who's just got their first PC, maybe that cost is just far too out of your reach to justify, but you've got all the other componentry and you didn't realize it was the case. So now you've done some research and found what cards will work okay for the time being until something either settles, which it won't, unfortunately, or something causes the prices essentially to drop on a comparison level to those cards. Unfortunately, with that said, an extra 100, even an extra 100% on a $200 card is more viable than spending the extra 50% on what is a $1,000 card, get me, to that person in that market. So that market itself has its own market and saturation of supply and demand issues, where the more prestigious cards have the same response regarding supply and demand. It just happens on a different scale, okay? But the scaling is essentially very similar. Unfortunately, there are certain set cards that Greg touches on where he doesn't actually mention why it's just blanked out. It's simple, they're just not there. They're just not there, okay? And they don't make a blimp on the radar. But because these are prices of, I believe, new items for PC Part Picker, they're not secondhand, and his secondhand analysis of the eBay market is just shonky.
This is the RX 580. Now, this doesn't tell you that.
Now, this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is much more volatile, and it's based upon the actual specific coins which it can still run and mine, okay? This card was the go-to card at one stage for mining itself, and depending on the coin, still very viable because they use, I believe, a lot less power than the new cards today, and because of that, it just takes longer, people, but eventually they get there with the same agenda at hand, okay?
Mining has taken off again. I don't know what will. Prices were pretty stable again, around $200. 580s and 570s, there's not a huge difference there. Again, apart from the VRAM.
The VRAM, which is the most important thing to who? If not the player itself, the miners. Now, on the other hand, about 8 gigabytes is about the sweet spot. Now, you probably want a little bit more just to have a safety net. Unfortunately, more VRAM means better mining capabilities for miners as well.
Disparity between the 4 gig and 8 gig SKUs, but then we see this huge spike. Look at that, and it's still going up. Projections have this going up quite a bit more. This card is already above It's at least in, but it's probably above $500 territory by this point in mid to late February.
On the average price, people, that is absolutely scary. And again, it comes down to someone looking for an 8 gig equivalent as well. Okay, 8 gigs is what's needed in gaming today. Unfortunately, the boost clocks are very, very dismal regarding these cards, unfortunately, as opposed to their Nvidia counterparts, but they still have some power left in them. And if you're going to spend and you need an 8 gigabyte card in this day and age, frankly, $15 to $2,000, and you don't have that, you've probably got $500 and you're willing to justify the cost to get that system running as a consumer. I guess you would. I personally wouldn't, because I'm of the notion that I just can't justify it. I can't justify it. I want to wait for a fresh new 8 gig card if that's the case, which would be I believe your 3070. Don't quote me on that exactly, but I would want something with, and I would want it at a time and unfortunately it's never going to happen. And it just means that I'm stuck essentially with my 4 gig running in a system that is my productivity system. Okay. And that means that luckily the software I utilize for this system is more CPU and RAM reliant currently. It can be optimized for GPU performance and acceleration as well, but currently utilizing it in that fashion. And you're just vigilant on how I'm using it. I just started using this software very, very recently, and I'm content with the current mix, because the other alternative was, if I was reliant on the GPU, then I would really be up shit creek. I would have to then go to my gaming PC, because my productivity PC is also my dual streaming setup PC, and I would have to take the 8 gigabyte, only 8 gigabytes, old now 2000 series RTX first generation card, and put it in there and be stuck with this for gaming. And that was the upgrade. So my mentality is I can't get anything less than that to replace that. Okay, that, what the RTX, that is the 2070 RTX basic model, has to go then in the productivity PC to upgrade that one. And then this can go in a budget conscious build, which I have ready to go. And I've been on the back burner, guys, ever since the 3080 Founders Edition came out. I was ready to pay for that card with a $600 to $700 or probably even less system, and pay for its card itself. And ever since then, I haven't even, with the system potentially selling, been able to pay for that card since. Okay, from an AIB. Okay, so it's scary. It's really, really scary. I wish I just had a few hits. And on a side note, people, my name's Robbi Astral. Welcome to Robbi Tech, and please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you find this at all amusing in any manner, entertaining, and or perhaps a bit more insightful than what Greg's currently being.
That is crazy.
Thank you, Greg.
If these cards were not selling for $500 or $600,
oh my God, he's going to say it again.
Listed for $500 or $600. I guarantee you, if we hopped on over to eBay, we'd see that these cards are selling en masse for at least double what they were 6 months ago. And then just to glance quickly at the RX 6800, other RDNA 2 cards, you see right when it launched, prices were slowly increasing.
Yeah, the odd thing is, where is that bulge because of the tariff situation? It doesn't exist on this one. It's a slow, but I wouldn't say it's a slow, because it happens over a period of approximately 2 months. It's a steady incline from base just under $600 to base just over $800. Okay, steady, very, very steady. Okay, now you have to understand that AMD was a little bit more forgiving when it came to their supply and demand graph, but on a steadier level. They had a set amount of stock ready to roll as well. And as that got sold, as the retailers realized they could raise the price, and that's what is equating to that steady incline. Okay, it starts to taper off at a point that people are enough's enough. Okay, and it hasn't got that same prestige that some of the other cards have regarding mining and whatnot. That it has it almost level at a point that it's justified. But where's that incline? And was this the price of retailers just bringing it up a notch from the recommended retail price of their own founders edition in that regards? Was it that, and then that's the incline because of tariffs? And you know what I mean, like, what is it, Greg? Because I personally want to know as well. I need to know this. I don't want you just creating filler content and getting paid for it on YouTube. You're a goddamn millionaire as a result of your viewers. So please, Greg, at the age of 25, you are a man, okay? You're a big boy. You're a big player. Explain to us. Don't hide. You can suffocate, and you can as an expense get cards, you know, part of your business, whatever it may be. I'm sure there's a loophole there. So it's not like you're reliant on certain things from anyone in specific anymore, especially someone in your position. So please, Greg, explain.
And then we have this huge spike when the tariffs are implemented. Who knows what mining is done to this market now?
Who knows? You know what's mining's done to this market. You're the one who's analyzing this right now. So are you asking the question, what just happened to GPU prices? Or were you emphasizing you were going to explain it? Because what are you doing in the end for 16 minutes, mate?
More notice we can see right when the tariffs were implemented, just after the new year.
Alrighty. Just after the new year, boom. That's about the 25%, isn't it? Okay. So that's clear as day. That's a very clear level of chart. Also, you have to look at the popularity of the card and its appeal to miners per se, as opposed to anything else they can get for that price. Okay. So if it hasn't got that appeal, it's simple. That's very clean and that's very justified. Okay. Apart from that, there's nothing more to it regarding 6800 XT and its average prices. Understood? All the others are open to debate and further analysis and clarification as to why it's the case. Greg's not doing it adequately enough in my eyes, people. I hope you guys see this as well. We are approaching quickly. There's another minute or two left before you see the live footage of me watching this for the first time as well. And it's a little bit more truer to myself, where you see me hitting exactly the same markers, but just seeing it and hearing it for the first time. Okay, I needed a warm up essentially to get into the video, so I thought I'd save the hassle of going through it again twice over. I do repeat myself a lot of the times, but that's because Greg himself gives me the ammunition itself to continue to repeat myself where he's neglecting to mention certain things, because to this point he still hasn't mentioned the retailers themselves as the culprits and the instigators of what is essentially the price of these cards on this section, which is the graphs for them being new. Okay? Simples.
Boom, prices shoot up by, this is at least 20%, 25%, actually more than that, closer to 35%, from about $750 to $1,000. That's pretty substantial. They've leveled off at around $1,000, slightly above that, according to this source.
Yes.
And then,
so if that's the case, and it's a 20% rise for tariffs, even a 25% rise for tariffs, why are they still $100 higher than that on a card that is $750 to $1,000? That's 25%, $250. Why $100 more? There's just nothing else. There's just nothing else. But these are, that increase on top of that is not tariffs, is the retailers taking it that $100 more, because these are on new cards, people. These aren't used cards. The retailers and or potentially The AIBs may have trickled through and explained that their prices are going up because of warehousing. It hasn't gone up just yet, but they are going up. Asus came out with a statement just recently that their cards are going to go up, okay? But it's going to trickle through, and that'll affect, okay? The retailers already bang. So 25%, this is our chance, again, bang, to raise it again after they banged it there. And they're double dipping already, and then they're going to blame manufacturing because of the increases, get me? On top of that again. And why not?
1,000.
Because PC parts are volatile and they're subject to change at any whim at any time, and this is what all these stores say. So good luck to even your ordered parts. You may be paying more by the time they get here.
I'll show you how to do that, Rick.
Okay, so when he goes into his, I beg your pardon, I need a vape. Okay, it's been a while. You won't see it as much at the end rather than the beginning, which is odd, but that's because the end is the beginning in this case, and the beginning is the end. So you get me. It's something that I learned from him just now, because I don't frequent eBay, because I just see it and go, no. I have people reference me parts that they want to buy from me, and they say, but on eBay this part's only going for this amount, or on eBay this part goes for this amount, that's why I'm selling it for this exorbitant fee. And I'm like, in this market, in this day and age, if you want to sell that item on this place, on this marketplace, on this Gumtree, on this Craigslist, don't use the market value of the highest place you can find the value of the item to be at, and where someone was willing to pay for it. Because what the Greg tells you how to do it, that's great. But what he should also then do is going from the cards which are sold and have sold on eBay, and they list the prices, the historical prices. Take that lineage of cards that you scroll down on and go from lowest price to highest instead. Simple. So organize those sale items and go from lowest to highest. And if it's a complete scroll until the end, get to about halfway in the scroll. That's your healthy medium. And then go back to be savvy consumer and go back and go, that's what we should be willing to spend, because that's really the true price. The rest of it's just desperation occurring and or people profiteering, okay? I'm making their money back from those cards anyway, so they're willing to spend those exorbitant fees. That's how Greg should actually teach you. He almost gets there. Again, it's half-assed and the scope isn't completely there, guys. So I apologize for Greg on his behalf. If Greg is not the type to ever apologize for any sort of mistakes, okay? I don't think he's even conscientious enough to realize how he broke that guy from The Verge, frankly, and profiteered from it with over 1.4 million views. So you do the math on how much he made with 1.4 million views off that video alone. But that poor guy. Anyway, people, let's give Greg about a minute's rest and let him get through another minute or two. And you're going to hear the live footage of me watching this stuff for the first time.
Very quickly, I was searching for RX 580. You want to hop on over to this advanced button on the top right, and then you can type in your search words, keywords here, item numbers, and then you want to click this box right here, sold listings, and then click search, and it will show you what.
Okay, so then you can sort them by most recent first. I would sort them by a specific date and region if possible, so that you've got them all in February or all in the last couple of months when the certain parameters were in check, and he's trying to explain those. So as long as you understand all the parameters and at what stage, it's great. Then you can list it from that time and go sort them by price from low to high still, please. Sometimes I do high to low for a specific reason, and that's just to see what the pedigree items are out there. And then I scroll down and double check so that the listings aren't boosting the average prices up to begin with, because sometimes I see items specifically there just to boost the price of other items. Okay, it's simple, and you have to exclude those, and then you get to that level, and that's the pedigree high items and how they're being sold, the prestigious models, the TIOC variants of graphics cards and whatnot, of the better AIBs, as opposed to your other items at the bottom end. But generally I flip the scale and I start from lowest to highest, and I work my way down the list to the point of my budget, okay, and what I have allocated, and then I look at the best I can get for the least. That's how I shop, that's how you shop, and it's a smart way to shop, people. Okay, it's the same when you're buying a Ferrari. If there's a Ferrari that's 3% less somewhere else, that's a massive saving, isn't it? Even people with money shop with their wallets and their hip pocket, essentially.
What these cards recently sold for, and these are the dates of the sale. So February 28th, that's today.
There's only a select few people who are especially from Portugal, okay, maybe in Portugal itself, for example, the situation is even more dire, okay? Understand that, like, this one's open box, advertised as new. That's buy it now, but it's pre-owned, okay? So that is $100 difference, okay? Understand that the majority, and statistically speaking, the majority of items regarding these type of purchases, secondhand, don't actually occur on eBay. They occur on all those other markets which are free to roam, free to sell on, and generally speaking, get a quicker transition occurring. Okay?
An RX 580 8 gig sold for $450. They're selling for something. Some of these 8 gig variants are selling for almost $500. Now there are, of course, other cards to consider in the used market. One that
This is why the prices on some of these cards are reflected in the charts have gone up to that level, because it's what the market's willing to pay for them used, and the retailers they don't have them in stock anyway. But if they get one or two in stock, then they may as well sell them for those prices new. It's simple. Again, the retailers are increasing and inflating that price for them new, because the used market, on the other hand, is being used as an example in the extremities of what is eBay to sell these items in regards to the US market, okay? Understand, again, on Craigslist, when those items, you could have been picking them up for a lot cheaper, okay? And because on Craigslist, if you have those statistics, $100, they're $100 less. You know what I mean? But retailers will always go to that pedigree price for used, because if that's the case, new should be that price. And when they come in new and they're available again, that used will decline back down again, and that new mark will be set. Simple. Explain it, Greg.
I've been preaching for years has been the GTX 1070, even the 1080 for about...
He's just bouncing there and what. Now we're not going to... So what just happened to GPU prices? We've established there is a price hike. And why, according to Greg, there's 2 or 3 reasons. Some, he said it at the beginning, it's only some, I guess, so he's not going to, go into all the others. According to myself, it's 5 or 6 now. Thank you, Greg. Sum it up then and close it down. But no, we've got another, we're only halfway through the video. Please tell us, I guess you're going to hit those other markers, and or not just show us the dismal situation that is the GPU market, because we're all aware of this, bro. That's why some video content creators on YouTube pertaining to PC tech are opting out of even reviewing the cards because of the dismay. And your choice has been to sort of almost to your viewers just rub it in completely. And now for another 8 minutes, you will do the same. Just continue to ramble about the prices. In your conclusion, you will sum up mining, probably, and that's about it as reasoning for it. And that rounded spec and that 16 minutes of my life, I will never be able to get back again. Thank you, Greg.
About $200 for a 1070, $300 or so for a 1080, at least right before Ampere launched. These cards were pretty high, and there were plenty of them available because people were slowly upgrading to either Touring or what would eventually be Ampere. So they were selling these in anticipation of those cards. Little did they know that those cards would be.
So this is another reason why, just to reiterate, this is another reason why NVIDIA didn't come out with a set amount of cards as well. There was also the 2000 series at that time still in stock on storefronts and shelves, okay? And unfortunately, to justify those cards, coming out in mass quantities would have meant that these cards never would have sold and would have been available, okay? And those cards would have been the first pick, and naturally the case. So had they flooded the market with more availability, then you'd have a set of two types of generations of cards sitting on shelves, which isn't ideal for the retailers themselves. So this has been factored into the equation at some stage or other regarding the supply and demand and the supply chain itself, people. This is something also to consider if you are doing a thorough analysis. Now, within 16 minutes, he should have hit a lot of markers, and there's a lot which I'm excluding as well as reasonings for these price hikes. But come on, Greg, mate, don't just use a scapegoat. Okay, don't just... You can't cry wolf and not explain where the wolf is, frankly, if you're there still talking about the bloody wolf, mate. You're still talking about the wolf, mate.
Extremely difficult to obtain, so rip them. But anyway,
the live aspect of things at 8 minutes and 45 exactly. Since I started creating my video on the topic regarding the review of his, and the link to his video is in the description below, so don't be afraid to have a look at the original thing so you can see that it is pretty much undoctored. That's the reason why it's there as well, so that you can use it as a reference point and a reference tool to what I'm saying as well, especially if I'm just using the audio. We may or may not decide, we'll see how we go. I've provided a reference to his material. The reference and his material is open book, and essentially it's all of it which I'm reviewing at heart, and I'm also correcting at times, so I'm doing him a favor as well. So if he even sees me flagging his name, he shouldn't be holding me accountable. He should be thanking me, frankly. But just to reiterate that he does not only have a duty of care to his viewers to provide that right information, he has, for example, hit over 50,000 views for this video already, let alone, I was at about 33,000 when I started watching this. It's a few hours later because I took a break in between to come back to do the second half, which is the first half essentially. He's at almost 76,000. We're at 8 minutes 08. Let's reload him real quickly.
You know, maybe you haven't noticed what...
He's at over 80,000 now, people. 80,000 views. So his is almost there. Another couple of hours, he's made $1,000 plus from this video alone. Plus, he's got sponsorship that he's endorsing an ad within his own video. On top of this, ad revenue as well, because it's a 16-minute video, people. Let's be brutal here. He's already made about $1,500 to $2,000 from this video alone. And what did he have to do? He had to do his expert analysis of the market. Mate, if you're doing that for $2,000 when other people, you know, within 2-3 weeks in America aren't even earning that, having the skin off their hands just literally ripped off while they're working there to the bone, bro, explain to these people why these prices are there, mate. Please, mate, please redeem yourself now. Let's go.
Than what they used to be. So such high demand on again the back of mining, the tariffs and the new markets, you know, trickling their way down to the used market. These sellers are smart. They realize when cards are selling quickly that they need to raise prices to account for that. Otherwise, I mean, you know, you're just going to completely burn through inventory. You're not going to have anything left to sell. So you raise your prices to account for that additional demand. Again, on the back.
That's the look. I have to just one thing, people. You're gonna burn through your inventory, so you have to raise the price. That's just capitalist greed. Simple. Because if you bought the item at a set value at a certain point, and these are sellers selling pre-owned items, okay? So he's talking about second-hand sellers, which means, generally speaking, there's one of that item from that second-hand seller. There aren't these establishments off-selling massive quantities of pre-owned cards unless they've been farmed on. Don't buy those farm cards, people. Anyway, now we're going into the live stuff, guys. So enjoy the rest of the video. My name is Robbi Astral. I'm your host at what you are currently watching is a Robbi Tech video. Salazar. And WTF is with GPU prices today. Okay, so let's go, people. enjoy the rest of the video. I appreciate all the support and thank you for following.
Bag of largely mining at this point, but like $400 for GTX 1070. This is a cheaper Asus variant, and it's selling for $400. Right, $15 CPU. I mean, Godspeed there. I mean, 1080.
He just did look at the graphic. He looked at the camera, and I believe that when he, in the last 30 or 40 seconds, when he has looked at the camera, guys, it's been when he's really talking shit, and he knows he's trying to appeal to you. When in actual fact, that's the point that you should be negating the most, because again, he's omitting the retailers as the limelight and perspective that you should be considering as well. And I pardon my English. My English not good. Actually, in actual fact, to be really honest with you, regardless of how my English sounds, it is technically my second language. I started the earth speaking my heritage language, which is Polish, and I've picked up English ever since, so I apologize. But to be brutal, you can't hold retailers accountable as well for trying to make an extra buck, okay? Especially when in the chain it has gone up. But the problem is, to be brutal, other componentry in the PC sector has also been affected, okay? To be brutal, okay? Because if he's talking about tariffs don't just apply to GPUs, okay? When it comes to mining, yes, that's understandable. But when it comes to mining, those miners also require componentry and other componentry, which hyperinflates it to a degree, or at the very least, the demand and the supply of these items is mitigated, because miners are getting back into the mix again, and they need those other items to run these computers also. Maybe for a GPU mining rig itself, they don't require as much of that as they need, 10 GPUs for the rig, but they still require those components. And because of that, getting back into the mining sector, these miners, they essentially need those components, and secondhand on you, they affect the supply availability regardless, okay? Now, the funny figure is, if you actually looked at, if you didn't look at massive industry sidestepping and not being noted as the major culprits in this, if you look at mining specifically as the major issue regarding GPU shortages currently today, then you would acknowledge that there are large, very large farms which are taking the percentage in bulk of these cards. Okay, you got your little miner on the side as a gamer as well. When he doesn't game, he lets his rig mine Ethereum or something. Not as profitable, not very smart. Maybe he breaks even, maybe he doesn't. But that's not the person that we should be looking at. We should be looking at the massive farms as the culprits here. These are where the card's being sidestepped. These people will then off-sell, in bulk these cards as well once they're done with. And if they're ever blatant enough and brazen enough to do so with 20 available listings, like 20 cards available at a set point, they're going to either establish themselves as genuine retailers or some sort of storefront, or you're going to know instantly that these are all ex-mining cards, okay? So they may establish themselves as a bullshit refurbished PC business. Very smart idea. And that means it looks like they're giving duty of care, and they're giving you an assurance that these cards are values. Because as soon as cards go onto the market and they're ex-mining rigs, you really don't want to be touching them with a 10-foot pole, frankly. Regardless of how well they've been maintained or cared for, they've been used excessively, meaning that the RAM and the memory is compromised regarding its reliability because of the amount of use it has had. Okay, understood? So yeah, let us continue on with Greg's market analysis, frankly, because he is the expert after all. I am just a shit kicker.
So whatever these are advertised as.
I'm struggling to understand what point he's trying to make here. Like, Are you on the side of the gamer? Are you saying that it's okay, it's not okay, it doesn't matter? It does matter. Are we talking just about the prices of GPUs? Are you trying to reiterate a point here? You're at the same time hiding something clearly regarding the retailers and not specifying them specifically. You've got your the lack of transparency here is an issue regarding the where you get your cards from, perhaps. Maybe the AIB specifically, you're not tackling on the specific, but you've shown the graphs in the general sense of the word. Are you worried? Has NVIDIA and NVIDIA's attack on Hardware Unbox made you think twice about your wording? Is that what it is? Because NVIDIA is a culprit here as well. I love their products, but they are a culprit here as well to begin with. And they try to sidestep the scenario, Greg. If you were listening to me, maybe you don't understand. Maybe you are, in fact, very naive for a 25-year-old man. On a side note, 25 isn't that old, guys. He is still a baby in the industry, frankly. But don't let Greg hear me say that, because he's a man, and everything he says is kosher, Greg Salazar. It's very kosher. I agree with you, buddy. I agree with you. 110% on the negative front. Anyway, let's continue on with this. This is essentially footage that you may or may not see, because I like to go in there with a plan of attack. At the same time, sometimes the best comments come from me when it's completely and utterly the first time I've watched the footage. You get to see the true emotion and my true self, providing I don't swear too much. And unfortunately, if it's edited anyway, it's probably me just cleaning up my language a little bit, because I can sound like a complete buffoon at times. I do look like one, I apologize, but I can sound like one as well.
These cards are great at many things, and that's why...
Many things, but Greg, you're on the side of us. I don't know what you... Like, do you worry about the hackers who are part miners coming to get you or something? Like... Look at his look right now, guys. Like, I don't want to say, but he borderline looks pissed off and evil. I hope it's with himself, frankly. I hope it's with himself.
Miners buy them. That's why...
Miners, and... Oh my lord, bro. Miners, because miners are the root of all evil here, not profiteering, greed, and the corporate structure that is part of the IT sector today. Miners are the problem here.
Content creators buy them. That's why, studios buy them in bulk, because these cards do a plethora of things. They're good at not just gaming, but multiple things. And we are experiencing the climax.
Look, to be brutally honest, as you go back in time, Greg, the brunt of the work that, say, video editors would have been utilizing, say, 4 or 5 years ago even, was more CPU RAM based stuff. So having these, maybe it's just coincidence, but while you're talking about, cards which are of 4 years of age plus, pre-owned and second-hand, currently now, okay, for the purpose of video editing, those content creators who are setting up those type of businesses aren't looking for pre-owned second-hand 4-year-old cards, bro. Please, mate, please, okay, just clarify your shit. Add some transparency to your shit. If you're not going to say something, put a disclaimer in, perhaps, get that sponsorship out that you're trying to secure quicker and sooner, rather than produce content like this that just is apeshit bullshit, bro. Okay? Because I said I had enough, guys, and if you tuned out already, you're getting the real me now. Okay? So now's less calculating Rob, but more emotional Rob. And if he was my brother, I would be borderline embarrassed, okay? Because he's not helping the situation, like I'm saying. He isn't helping. He's contributing, frankly, to the mess. Okay.
Of demand right now. I mean, we've got 1080 Ti selling for more than MSRP at this point. It just does not. If somebody spent,
he's spending a lot of time, a very, very long period of time, reinforcing the same point over and over. I don't know why he went for 16 minutes that long. He must have seen it as, look, because he has to be smart as well. So the stuff he produces essentially he knows he can't waste his time on stuff that ain't going to get viewership. You know, that's his work. Okay. And if this is maintaining your view for this length of a period of time, then at what point do I chime out? Well, we already established that. I had enough of it about 8:45 in, and we're almost 12 minutes in. So I'm just gonna sit back and we're gonna probably fast forward to his conclusion just to see what he reiterates again for the fourth time. The three culprits, not the fourth, and definitely not the fifth, which is the N-bomb. I don't want to say the N-bomb, guys. You can't say the N-bomb in this day and age anymore because, well, fuck it, I'm just going to say it. NVIDIA will come down like a house on fire on your ass if you negate and be negative in their light in any way, shape or form. Love their products, so please let me one day review your products because I love them regardless of the prices.
$1,159 on a GTX 1080 Ti for the Win 3. Does that compute with anybody? And if someone's looking for an RX 5600 XT, what do we have here? $630, $640, $640, $600, $600, $650, $750, $730. Good luck. Come on. So if you've been wondering why graphics cards have suddenly shot up in value,
we have been wondering why they've suddenly shut up and died. Sorry. Well, clearly, clearly there's an issue with this graph specifically regarding the February and that. It pretty much means they've been non-existent regarding stock levels. This is not the graph he should be showing. All the others he should be referring to again regarding the sum up here. It's a little annoying that he's gone to the most neutral graph in this regards for his conclusion because he's calculating as well. You know how he says these people are smart, these sellers are smart? Greg is a smart person as well, but he's the biggest, smartest idiot I've seen this week, frankly.
Mid to late February, this is all why. I can only show you why things are happening the way they are. I can only show you why the market is reacting.
He's again, why things are happening, why the market is reacting, he can only show us. So, but you're telling us why. Is that the case? You're telling us three factors. You are definitely not rounded in your scope, buddy. You're definitely hiding something. You've got some skeletons in your closet that are drying for another day, and I'm afraid to say that this isn't a roast, so don't take it personal. Okay, you ain't being sued here, so please don't retaliate unless you're ready to have a heart-to-heart conversation about PC tech and be as transparent as you should be regarding why you're omitting the most common factor here that's at play, which is retailers themselves selling these at higher to hyperinflated prices. First most, starting the trend when COVID began, and double dipping as well thereafter. Thank you. My name is Robbi Astral, and you've come to Robbi Tech. I appreciate all the views, guys. Peace out.
The way that it is, I cannot do anything about it. None of us can do anything. Someone messaged me on Twitter and was like, "Why are GTX 1070s $500? Can you please help?" Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I mean,
He doesn't know what we want him to do. That's fine, Greg. Okay, look, guys, that's completely fine. You understand? He doesn't have to do anything. But like I said, he's not helping the situation, okay? By doing this, he's just doing it for himself and the bottom line, which is the dollar that he's receiving from these views. Okay, he's playing on the emotion of the sector itself. He's just playing on the consumers themselves, yourself, myself. He ain't got a problem getting in the car when he needs to. Trust me. Okay? I don't care what he says. Okay? If anything, he'll use wording like, I'm having trouble getting cars as well. More so than I ever did. And then he'll throw it back on you. Because technically that would probably be true, wouldn't it? Because with anything...
I've already upgraded so many viewers' PCs in the PCDC playlist. I have given away so many graphics cards. I don't have anything left to give away. I mean, if I give away all my inventory, I have nothing to test. I have nothing to build with. That's kind of like what I do.
Well, he pretty much says it right there, doesn't he? That he's struggling to get... What does he do? He's struggling to get cards as well. But he's painting the picture that he's a hero here. Mate, bro, you don't pay for the cards. They're business expenses at the very least. They're part of systems that you're building at the very least. You get those cards sent to you half the time. The other time, if it's from your pocket, you'll use it as a review sample, so it becomes part of an expense, okay, for the job at hand. You know, you have to declare it, and that I'm sure there's some form of sidestepping and laws which apply in your favor in regards to that in the United States. I'm sure if I looked strongly enough, there'd be something similar in Australia as well. But Greg's looking down the barrel of the gun right now, guys, and he ain't flinching. I hope what he says from the here on in is worthwhile, because I said I'd drop it at 8:45. We're 12:51 in, and I'm afraid to listen to his conclusion as well. I'll let you guys be the judge of this, okay? Perhaps in the comments, leave me a comment if he redeems himself in any light. But and I appreciate. I will try to respond to every comment I can. I'm not trolling here, guys. I'm trying to paint a picture, as Greg said. I'm trying to paint a picture as to what is actually going on in this current market today, okay? And the best way to understand that is to understand it myself, or in his case, himself, as adequately with the best scope as possible, without not omitting all information, or omitting any information, I beg your pardon. And yeah, I seriously feel like smashing my head against this keyboard.
On this channel, I feel bad for those who are stuck with, you know, really expensive platforms, but no viable graphics card. Someone said he had like a 9900K or a 10900K, and paired it with a GTX 1650. I mean, that's clearly a graphics card bottleneck 99% of the time in game. But what?
So 9900K, if it was bought at the time it was new, okay, means that more than likely at that stage in time, if they didn't buy a graphics card at the same time they bought that system, then yes, that would have been a poor choice. But at that time, at that stage, the availability of GPUs was not compromised, and you could get yourself, from my understanding, at the very least, a 2000 series GPU. So he's used an example of someone building a new system now with still a 99K at the very least. 109K is getting closer to COVID, okay? So let's not discount that. But he's not very clear. You can see even the reference, and he looks down the barrel again when he generally makes up bullshit. He'd be a bad poker player, frankly. Generally speaking, in reference to that, he has to understand that if you want to be the professional, you have to be clear and precise as you can. He's got the luxury of editing his stuff. He's got very lazy, and because of that, he should be very, very grateful that the viewers, 33% of the time, because I'd say 1 in every 3 of his videos are complete horseshit, that the viewers aren't disliking proportionally so, and downvoting his stuff as much as they're upvoting it, okay? Because I can't understand how as I'm literally recording this video, people understand that his view count's gone up 10,000 and his likes have now gone up approximately 500. So it's starting to slow down the likes. So I don't know, perhaps like he had over 3,000 likes to 30,000 views at one stage, and now he's got 44,000 views and only another 400k likes. So if you go on at the 10% ratio at the beginning, I'm also borderline gonna not want to defame him, but suggest that maybe he's got someone on the side there who's got some bots liking his shit to just bump him up the chain. Because statistically speaking, if that's the case, after 30,000 views on a video, I've got a feeling that that 10% ratio of likes and dislikes should continue. But with the next 10,000 views, he's only had 400 or 500, so that's half to 5% of an upvote downvote systematic approach. Just something else that you guys should start pondering, because it's something that I'm feeling is not being disclosed, because YouTube would shut these people down instantaneously. But it's something that unless I have complete and utter proof, you can't take that as word from me. Okay, it's just an inclining feeling, like an electrifying sensation I'm feeling when I think about this topic, that there are some people, some big players that have essentially what are farms of bots active, and not just one, but it's a collage of these players where there may be someone there on the side who's benefiting from this, where they all have an undisclosed agreement between themselves, which they obviously keep very hush-hush, that is promoting this stuff. This is something that YouTube and Google would shut them down instantly, okay? This is something that is something on a side note that should be considered as well, because it's falsifying what is big money for them, okay? And they can't just stop. And they can't just stop now, but they're established, and they probably should, because if they get caught out, we're not talking credibility being at play here. If they get caught out and this is in fact the case, it may or may not be, but if this is in fact the case, okay, they're going straight to jail. They're not passing go. They're definitely not collecting another $200, guys. They're going straight to jail. My name's Robbi Astral. Thank you for your presence, people. Please hit the like and or subscribe button if you at all thought this was entertaining and or helpful in any way. Just trying to shed a light, people. After all, just like Greg, we're just normal people trying to have you guys open your eyes.
There's nothing I can do about it. Ultimately, the only way to quickly correct these prices, when I say correct, I mean, again, this is market equilibrium. There's nothing wrong with these prices in that sense. They're being priced at what they are selling for. That is by definition equilibrium. So you can't say that the prices are all out of whack, the economics are broken, whatever. Sellers are just selling them for what they can sell them for, and you can't, again, fault them for that. But the only real way to correct this quickly is to not buy any of these cards for these prices. If you tell the seller that this is not worth this, and when I say if you tell them, I mean like the market. If you as the buyer base, consumer base, tell the market that these are...
Unfortunately, that's a problem, Greg. There's enough miners, since you made that point apparent and clear, that it's the miners to blame. There's enough miners picking up these cards that and or reselling the older ones to recoup the costs of the newer ones being hyperinflated even for them to purchase. Then it really doesn't make a difference what we do, because there's someone else going to be there purchasing these cards, at least for the time being. So what we really have to do is, if this is the reason, okay, is in your eyes, in your eyes, according to what you're saying to us as your viewers, what we really have to do is condemn mining not agree to acquiring digital currency at the high levels that they are currently, have them not play a part in our society on the whole, okay? Because essentially and effectively, they're not endorsed by major banking corporations completely just yet. We should make sure that it never is the case, and the value of these currencies would definitely depreciate immensely because of this, okay? And then in turn, the availability of these GPUs specifically will become more the case because the supply would not be effective as much. And if the value of these GPUs did in fact come down or didn't, then while the currency is still at a rate that's not feasibly viable for mining, unless you're set up with an extremely efficient operation, if the cards are then, in your case, the way you're summing this up, it should be said, okay, because I can swing it both ways, guys. Understand this. I am a professional in my field as well, okay. But I'm done sugarcoating stuff, so I'm making you guys understand what he should be saying if you wanted to. So then, if the cards are still up, it means that these are private mining organizations that aren't, say, for example, affiliated with the GPU manufacturers themselves, but are still buying these in bulk, that are justifying the price, and they still exist because these are the only people that would be able to make money from mining a coin once it's depreciated in value. Okay, then I'll suggest that it's still occurring, and what is the issue is the current rate of supply being inadequate, because this was always the case, okay? Unless the price of a coin drops so drastically that the efficient mining operation wasn't capable of mining it for profit, what would happen then? They wouldn't just disband necessarily and sell off the cards. They'd wait a little bit. They would try to push for anything and everything themselves to be able to increase the price of the coins themselves to what? Essentially restart the operation by just turning the switch back on. So they just switch it off. This is what they do until the massive crash occurs. Okay, get me? This is where he should sort of be leaning to, if this is how subjective he wants to be regarding his scope of and his understanding, that he's willing to at least portray, because he's a smart fella. So either he admits that he's completely wrong, or he admits that he's got hidden agendas and through a lack of transparency in his approach to this video in particular, guys.
They're not worth this. Then prices will come down. Problem is, you're not going to be able to rally every human on Earth to not spend what these people are spending on these cards. People are gonna see value in this, especially if you can make 10, 20, 30 bucks a day mining, whatever you happen to be mining. They don't really care about the initial cost. And what...
I believe 130.80 will net you approximately $10 a day if you're lucky. So 330.80s will then net you, I guess, the $30 figure a day if you're lucky. Meaning that, or probably about $28.50 or something like that. Meaning that once you're past that 3 threshold and you got 5, 10, you have to really consider the person who's got this operation going. That's not your average layman. That's not your person who's bought a card for gaming on the side. Okay, that's a specific miner in that regards. Anyone with more than one card is clearly a specific miner, aren't they? So
they'll do is they'll sell all of these cards in their mining farms again 5 or 6 months from now or whenever, and they'll recoup a lot of their initial investment. So they're not necessarily looking at this like a sunk cost, because they're going to resell these cards later. Sure, they might take a hit on the resale value, but at least they're getting some of that. They're recovering some of their initial investment at the end of the day. And that's enough for them. So the upfront.
So Greg, you've made us aware of the current situation as it is at hand. We all appreciate this, Greg. Thank you, Greg Salazar, for making us aware that it is a shit heap and a shitstorm affair regarding GPU prices currently today. Thank you, Greg, that you required more content, and this is the content you're providing. Thank you for elaborating as to exactly why it is the case. Thank you in your strongest part, that should be your conclusion, reiterating your points, making us aware that what? Because we are already aware. In fact, if you thought this was a great approach to the content, while other video content providers are actually circumnavigating the shitstorm that is the negative PR and being associated with GPU prices today, you thought, because of his ego, guys, he's a bit naive. I have to apologize for the young fella. I say it now. You thought it was a good idea to come up with this strategy to get some extra collateral, some extra monies. I apologize, I'm not a business specialist. I am a HR major, but I'm not a business specialist. You thought this was a good idea, Greg. And I have to now apologize to my viewers who may be going through a transitional phase, because they wanted to essentially understand the bigger picture here. I thought your 16-minute video would be enlightening. I was wrong. I gave you the benefit of the doubt 8 minutes in to hear the last 8 minutes and to see whether the point factors that you touch on is a full breadth of scope. Unfortunately, I was wrong as well. At least in this case, you, sir, are also partially to blame. Thank you, mate.
Upfront price is not a big deal. Serious about mining aren't looking at MSRP or whatever these cards are selling for now and thinking, wow, this is an awful deal. I mean, I'm sure it's crossing their mind these are a bit high, but they're looking at the end game. They're looking at the long-term investment when it comes to mining, and that's why prices are so expensive, because they just don't care at the end of the day. A gamer buys one graphics card and it sits in a system for a year or two, right? That's a pretty big cost for you.
And that's a problem, guys. He's a bit of a hypocrite, because Greg, regardless of how he sounds, just doesn't care as well. He should have more due diligence pertaining to the video and the content that he's providing for you all, his viewers. He should have taken more care in his approach to this matter at hand, and perhaps there would have been a really decent video that was provided by him in this case. Unfortunately, it's not the case. Unfortunately, he's making a lot of mistakes here. Unfortunately, guys, unless you're watching someone like myself walk you through it, he may not even be picked up on this. And that's the saddest part of all. You know, so he says, unless we all rise up, unless we all stand as one, you know, regarding these GPU prices, unless we all have a better understanding of what it is, the IT industry, and how it is in fact becoming, this is only going to get worse in the long run. Because understand that, generally speaking, the retailers are never going to want to backpedal and sell items at less than what they can get. And once a certain price structuring is established, that price structuring will remain regardless of the reasoning for it to begin with. It could be as simple as the factory just pressing the off button. That's it. it may or may not exist. You know what I mean? Do you get me? Anyway.
Right, because gaming for the most part doesn't make us any money. Unless you're streaming or you're a professional esports player or what have you, you're not going to make any money with your graphics card just sitting there.
Thanks, Greg. What is your fucking point? What is your fucking point, mate? I am struggling to understand. What do you mean gaming? Gaming. I want to hit the markers so that the kids understand and I want to relate. So, of course that's the case, mate. Of course that's the case. So, you're going to go back to the miners again. But mining will make you a lot of money. Come on, bro. Seriously? And mining only makes you a lot of money if you're an efficient miner. You have to have more than one GPU. That's where you should be touching on. Anyone who's got themselves a rig and decides to pay off the electricity it burns half the time they're not mining. It means half the time they're not mining, they're using it for gaming and whatnot. But anyone who's got more than one GPU, generally speaking 3 plus, is more than likely doing it specifically for just that purpose. Okay?
Miners are. They see, again, this is an investment opportunity, and that's why they're okay spending more for these cards, especially when they're in such high demand. And Ethereum and every other cryptocurrency, it seems like in the crypto market, is skyrocketing right now. They don't care about this relatively small upfront cost. That's why it's affecting pretty much the entire graphics card market. Any card that's somewhat viable for mining. That on top of the fact that there's a worldwide chip shortage. I mean, what can you do? It's just a freaking call.
First time he mentions also a chip shortage, so that's a fourth regarding the reasonings. Does not at all go into any length probably pertaining to this and why this is the case. It's a shame because he'd have to start on Nvidia's front. He'd have to start on the way the business is structured. It's too much for Greg. Okay, at least I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that if he spent an hour portraying this, and he definitely spent about, I'd say 6 minutes too long reiterating points. Had he spent 10 minutes, I would have been more forgiving. But he's decided to spend a lot more time for the viewer numbers to increase the length of time that you guys stayed watching this shit. And I'm going to call it shit now. I guess it is what it is, and it's only going to be the case if we allow it to be the case. So perhaps don't like my stuff if you're inclined not to bother upvoting. But definitely hold these tubers accountable when it comes to also downvoting, because I don't want a negative spiral of events to occur, but if they get the prestige and they get the movement and the motivation from all the upvotes, I'm hoping those upvoters are just as proficient, especially if they're enthusiasts watching his shit, generally speaking, always, that they actually downvote him. And it's really scary that his downvoting is so small. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, even his emotionally charged giveaways and whatnot, you have to understand the giveaways, the majority of the time, the items that he's been given anyway, so I guess it makes sense to give them away. Even when he doesn't, nowadays he's established enough that it takes him about 250,000 views to do a serious build in this day and age, and that build will be paid for. So if he's got 500,000 views for a video, then he has made some considerable cash from that video alone, even through his own reinvestment into it. And that's totally fine once you're in that position, but not when he emotionally plays that angle like he's the good guy. Guys, I give away these. It's like, thanks, bro. Like, we see your content. You don't have to. Because he does it, he's smart as well. He does it strategically because he's trying to hit those markers on you guys in a time where we're all emotionally charged because we're stuck in our boxes and we can't even play the newest games. Does it play Crisis? It doesn't matter, people. Does it play Cyberpunk is what matters. And we can't play Cyberpunk at more than 20 frames per second unless we get new cards. My name's Robbi Astral. Please hit the like and or subscribe button. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the support, people. Thank you very much. And goodbye from Robbi Tech.